I remember the sound of the ticker, a metallic hum, steady and hypnotic, echoing through my office like the heartbeat of Wall Street itself. Each clack was a pulse of greed, fear, hope, and desperation, the language of men translated into numbers. To most it was noise, but to me it spoke, it told me stories, and buried within those stories was one signal, one shift in rhythm that told me when the tide was turning, when the crowd's madness was about to collapse under its own weight. You call it a trend reversal today. I called it the pivotal point, the moment when the market, that great beast of human emotion, hesitated. The first time I truly recognized it, I was still young. I had already made and lost fortunes, but I hadn't yet learned patience. The market punishes impatience more ruthlessly than any vice, and I had plenty of it. I used to trade every fluctuation, chase every rumor, and justify every loss. But one day, after watching the tape for hours, I noticed something strange. The market had been climbing relentlessly, day after day, and yet, that afternoon, something in its tone changed. The same volume, the same enthusiasm, but the movement lacked conviction. Prices were rising, yes, but not with the same strength. The tape hesitated. It felt tired. It was the first time I heard the market whisper. Most traders see prices, but few feel them. That's the difference. The tape is alive, and if you watch long enough, you begin to recognize its moods. When a trend is genuine, it breathes easily, rising and resting in rhythm. But when the crowd begins to push it beyond reason, the rhythm falters. That's when the professionals begin to sell quietly, while the amateurs shout louder. That was my signal. Years later, during the bull market of the 1920s, that same signal would reappear, louder than ever before. You could feel it on the streets. Every shoeshine boy was a trader, every banker a prophet. The market had become a religion, and everyone was worshiping the same God, eternal prosperity. I had seen this before. I knew how it ended. The air in my office that summer was thick with heat and arrogance. The ticker tape streamed endlessly, printing new highs as though the laws of gravity had been repealed. But amid the noise, I heard it. That faint hesitation again. The leaders of the bull market, U.S. Steel, Radio, General Motors, they began to stall. The same volume, but slower advances. The same excitement, but less progress. It was as though the market wanted to rise, but couldn't. That's how the market tells you the truth. Not through words, but through struggle. I sat back in my chair and watched. Most traders were blind to it. They were drunk on profits, celebrating each new record close. They called it a healthy correction, a pause before the next leg up. I knew better. I had learned to recognize the hesitation that marks the end of euphoria. A market doesn't collapse because it runs out of buyers. It collapses because the last buyers are finally in. I didn't sell that day. I waited. I wanted confirmation. That unmistakable failure of effort when prices try to rise again but meet invisible resistance. That's when the pivot forms, quiet but powerful. It's not a single tick or a line on a chart. It's a pattern of behavior, a shift in the market's psychology. Weeks later, the confirmation came. Volumes surged again, but prices refused to follow. The tape grew heavy. That was all I needed to know. I began to sell. Not recklessly, but deliberately, methodically, the way a surgeon cuts. One careful incision at a time. The crowd still cheered as I sold into their enthusiasm. They thought they were buying the dip. They always think that. I wasn't selling stocks. I was selling emotion, their emotion. Every share I unloaded was a piece of someone else's hope, packaged neatly in paper and handed back to them at a profit. Then came the crash. It started quietly, as it always does. A few sharp declines, quickly dismissed. Healthy pullback, they said. But the tape didn't recover its rhythm. The hesitations became tremors, then panic. Prices fell faster than men could rationalize them. I had seen it before, in 1907, but never on this scale. The market wasn't correcting, it was breaking. That one signal, the hesitation, the failed effort at the top, had whispered its warning weeks before. And when it did, I listened. Others mocked my caution. They said I was too bearish, too paranoid that I didn't understand the new era. But the market doesn't care about eras. It cares only about truth. When the dust settled, fortunes were gone, reputations destroyed. Men who had been hailed as geniuses were now beggars in the same streets where they once threw money like confetti. I had stood aside, or rather, stood short, and the tide of ruin became my greatest victory. But let me tell you something they never understand. I did not celebrate. There is no joy in being right when others are destroyed. The market teaches through pain, and that pain never leaves you. I didn't see myself as lucky. I was merely obedient, obedient to the signal that so many chose to ignore. Do you know why most traders never see it? Because they don't want to. They mistake conviction for stubbornness and hope for analysis. The signal always appears when emotions are highest, when greed is loudest, and it's hardest to listen then because the crowd makes you doubt your own eyes. But that's the price of success in speculation. You must learn to stand alone. I learned that lesson the hard way. Many times I ignored my own rules. I chased a move, I held too long, I believed my opinions. And each time, the market punished me until I surrendered to discipline. I learned that price is never wrong. My ego was. The market is a living thing, not a machine, not a theory, but a reflection of every human impulse. It rises on dreams and collapses on disappointment. When you study it long enough, you realize that every chart, every bar of data is a portrait of human nature repeating itself. That's why the same signal works today as it did in my time, because human nature hasn't changed. You can wrap it in algorithms, screens, indicators, but behind it all, it's still fear and greed pulling the strings. The hesitation before a reversal is the same heartbeat I heard in 1901, in 1907, in 1929. The only difference now is that your ticker is digital and your crowd is global. But the rhythm is eternal. In my years on Wall Street, I watched thousands of traders come and go. The best among them were not the most intelligent nor the most daring. They were the ones who could wait. Waiting, that was the true art. To do nothing when nothing should be done. To sit through the noise, to trust the signal. Patience is the trader's sword. Impatience is his suicide. When I felt the hesitation, I never acted instantly. I let the market reveal itself. I watched how it tested the limits, how it faked strength, how it tried to deceive those who wanted to believe. The pivot never appears cleanly. It teases you, tempts you, tests your nerve. But once you've seen it enough times, you recognize its face, the exhaustion, the imbalance, the shift from hope to doubt. And once you've seen it, you can never unsee it. There's a strange loneliness in that kind of knowledge. When you can read the crowd's emotions like a map, you stop being part of it. You become an observer, detached. I suppose that's why so many traders go mad. They can't handle the isolation that clarity demands. Sometimes in the stillness of the night, I could almost hear the market breathing. It would whisper in patterns, higher highs, higher lows, then stutter, hesitate. That hesitation was my moment, the pulse of greed slowing into exhaustion. I didn't need tips or news or forecasts. The tape was enough. It always told me the truth, if I was patient enough to listen. People think speculation is about prediction. It isn't. It's about observation. You don't need to know what will happen. You need to recognize when what should happen doesn't. That's the essence of my signal. When the market exerts effort and gains nothing, the move is over. When enthusiasm meets resistance, the trend has died. You can see it in any era. A stock rallies on good news but fails to make a new high. A cryptocurrency surges, but volume fades while headlines scream. A commodity spikes on emotion, then stalls despite optimism. The actors change, the tools evolve, but the psychology remains the same. The hesitation is always there, if you care to see it. When I took my short position before the crash, I didn't know the magnitude of what was coming. No one did. But I didn't need to. The signal was clear. The market was done rising. Everything after that was just arithmetic. And yet, Even as the world collapsed, a part of me remained uneasy. You see, it's one thing to profit from the fall and another to watch it unfold. The ticker printed prices that looked impossible, companies disintegrating in hours, men jumping from windows they once owned. Success in the market is always paid for by someone else's failure. I never forgot that. But the lesson was eternal. When the rhythm of the market breaks, the story is ending. The hesitation is the prelude to the fall. Ignore it, and you will pay dearly. Respect it, and it will protect you for life. Now, a century later, you have every advantage I could have dreamed of. Real-time charts, instant execution, oceans of data. Yet most traders still fail for the same reason they did in my day. They confuse activity with intelligence. They see a screen light up and think they've found opportunity, but opportunity only exists for those who wait for the signal. There's nothing mystical about it. It's just pattern recognition, repeated across generations. Watch any trend long enough and you'll feel it. The slowing pulse, the hesitation, the faint betrayal of strength. It's the point where logic ends and emotion begins. That's where the reversal lives. I don't expect most to believe me. The crowd never believes until it's too late. But for those who do, for those who train their eyes to see what others ignore, the market becomes something else. It becomes readable, predictable in its unpredictability. The chaos becomes rhythm, and within that rhythm lies fortune. If you remember nothing else from my life, remember this. Trends end not with violence, but with weakness. They die quietly before they collapse loudly. Watch the hesitation. That's the whisper of the coming storm. And when you hear it, don't hesitate with it. Be patient. Yes, wait for proof. But once the proof comes, act with conviction. A trader's edge is not in prediction, but in preparation. The market rewards clarity and punishes emotion. Even now, across decades, the signal remains. It whispers in your charts, in your order books, in your volume bars. You have to slow down enough to hear it. The market is an old teacher, and I was one of its stubborn students. It gave me fortune, and it took it away more than once. But its greatest gift was insight, the realization that success was never about outsmarting others, but about understanding myself. The hesitation didn't just signal a market reversal. It signaled the boundary between greed and wisdom. So before you trade again, ask yourself, is the market still obeying the trend, or has it begun to hesitate? That one question will save you more than 1,000 strategies. And if you ever doubt, remember the lesson that made my fortune and cost me my peace. When the tape hesitates, listen. When the rhythm breaks, prepare. Because when the crowd sees it, it's already too late. The signal is eternal. The market always whispers before it screams. Listen closely and you'll hear it. The same soft hesitation that changed my life and could change yours. Now tell me, when the next reversal comes, will you see it or will it see you first?